Brenna, the fall calf run is well underway. How have prices held up? There was a bit of a dip in the last little while compared to where we were at.
Absolutely. The calf run has been surprisingly strong and really resilient and robust this fall. And we saw a big rally back in August and September. And yes, last week we did see a very slight dip. It was pretty similar to the dip we saw a month ago as well. But that was not surprising given the conversation starting mid-October in the US about how the US could put some actions in to keep retail beef prices low for consumers.
So it basically was because of the U.S. futures price that reacted to that discussion.
Absolutely. So in the US, there's been some announcements made, first around increasing the tariff rate quota for Argentina from 20,000 tons to 80,000 metric tons. Um, so really the implication on that is the tariff amount. It doesn't mean that they're going to actually be purchasing or buying stuff. That's for the market to decide yet. Uh, but there was definitely a response to the futures market about the potential of increased imports coming into the market.
So how would you characterize calf prices right now? Are we at record highs, and if so, by how much as compared to previous years?
Well, right now we're looking at calf prices anywhere between 660 and 680 compared to prices last fall of 425 to 475. And so even just year on year, prices have had a tremendous increase. And even prices last fall were record large.
That's a huge amount of money it must be taking for feedlots to be buying all those cattle and filling up those lots.
Absolutely. There's been fierce competition to fill those pens in feedlots as we're seeing tighter supplies available.
So, what is the typical trend through the year? Do calf prices tend to tail off a little bit as the fall calf run proceeds, or does it stay steady historically, or does it increase? What factors are at play there?
Yeah, so it really depends on what part of the cattle cycle we're in. So when we have ample supplies around, we typically see price peaks earlier in the calf run, and then as those pens get filled, you see prices can soften going into late November and December. But right now, when we're seeing tighter supplies available and lots of really strong competition for calves. You can actually see some counter seasonal price action with prices rallying throughout the fall run as feedlots bid to fill pens.
So, what factors will be involved as we look ahead the next couple of years as to whether calf prices are maintained, or whether these good times start to wane? What factors will you be watching for?
The main indicator we watch is when does heifer retention start? And so there's a big question out there. Is some of this rally right now that we're seeing due to the fact that heifer retention has already started and there's more bred heifers going to be available here in November and into December for the bred sales? Or do we have cow-calf producers right now looking to retain heifer calves? And once that heifer retention starts, that sort of starts the timer of when we expect the prices to actually turn in this cattle cycle. And that usually happens about 18 to 24 months after that heifer retention starts.
It just takes that long before the heifer retention to impact the beef supply.
Yes, and this cycle is really expected to be determined by weather and how robust that heifer retention actually is. So in our last cycle, we had in the US really strong heifer retention in the fall of 2013 when the drought in the US broke, and that resulted in a very sharp price peak up from 2013 to 2015. And then when we saw that larger calf crop come on in the spring of 2015, the prices turned and moved sharply down. Because of where we are with weather right now in both Canada and the US, things have been really spotty. Yes, there are regions that are potentially looking to rebuild, restock after drought, or expand, but other regions that are still fairly dry and so are really not looking for that expansion. We're expecting a slower turn to this cycle. And that means instead of having a sharp price peak, a sharp up and a sharp down, we're looking more at an upside down U with prices this time, where you see prices come up. And whether you talk about the peak being now at sort of this is where we're expecting prices to be, but then more moving sideways until we actually see that larger calf crop come forward.
Brenna Grant, thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you, Kevin.